Testing audio 1 2 3 4. Check 1 2.
Okay, everyone, we're going to call the Planning Commission meeting to order. If you could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Crystal, if you could help me with the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
The pledge
A
of
roll call.
Roll call.
Commissioner Aker?
Here.
Commissioner Cahalan? Here. Commissioner Cranky? Here. Commissioner Merrick? Here. Commissioner Jahinski?
here.
Commissioner Hausman?
Here.
Mayor Atwell?
Present.
Scott Hussinger? Amy Barrows? Here. And absent is Commissioner Schultz.
Great, thank you very much. All right, we're going to move on to number 4, discussion of possible action on the following minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes or any corrections?
Motion to approve the minutes from February 28th.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, are there any citizens' comments for items on the consent agenda? Any citizens' comments for items on this consent agenda? Seeing none, citizens' comments on the consent agenda are now closed. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Can I just, if you're here for Midwest Insurance Group or the Robert and Charlotte Miller exterior building paint change, you can leave if you want to. They were both approved.
Or you can stay for the whole meeting and have fun with the rest of us. Okay, we'll move on to number 7, public hearing. Public hearing number 1, topic, text amendment to Chapter 52, City of Delafield zoning ordinance, specifically Section 52-197, existing nonconforming uses, Section 52-198, abolishment, Section 52-201, nonconforming characteristics of residential structures, and possible other sections related to the topic. Applicant, City of Delafield Planning Commission. Still on public, yep. Matter, amend the text of the 52, section 52-197, existing non-conform. Is that on here twice?
Yeah, there's topic and then matter.
Keep changing this agenda around. Okay, anybody here to speak to public hearing number 1? Anybody here to speak to public hearing number 1? Seeing no one speaking up, public hearing number 1 is now closed. We will move on to public hearing number 2. Text amendment to Chapter 52, City of Delafield zoning ordinance, specifically Sections 52-25 boathouse, Section 52-11 definition of boathouse, and possible other sections related to the topic. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to public hearing number 2? Anyone that would like to speak to public hearing number 2?
I just want to point out there was a written comment provided and it is included in the packet.
Great, thank you very much. All right, public hearing number 2, comments are now closed. All right, we'll move on to number 8. Citizens' comments on items other than the consent agenda. Is there anybody here that would like to talk about anything that's on the rest of the agenda? Anyone want to speak? Seeing none, citizens' comments are now closed. Move on to 9, unfinished business. We have none. Number 10, new business. 10A, City of Delafield Public Road right-of-way of Oakwood Road. Applicant Peter Damsgaard, on behalf of the Commodore applicant, is requesting permanent signage approval for an off-site directional signage to accommodate the Commodore restaurant. We did. This might be your last time, is that right?
It might be. Never say never.
He knows all the routines.
Peter Damsgaard, N58, W6181 Columbia Road, Cedarburg, Wisconsin, 53012.
Great, Amy, you want to give us an overview, please?
Sure. Okay, Mike, if you could go to the screen, thank you. So the Commodore, as you know, is proposing 2 directional signs. The first sign, which is located on 83 and Nagawicka Road was approved during the February meeting, so that's already been approved. Now, at tonight's meeting, they would like for you to consider the smaller sign on Oakwood Road, which is next to or at the intersection with Nagawicka Road. It is in the right-of-way of Oakwood Road, so they did go to Department of Public Works for review and approval, and Public Works did approve that. They did discuss illumination and that they would like the sign to not be illuminated or to be very subtle. The applicant did reach out to me today, and they are not going to propose to illuminate that sign. So we'll need to tweak the recommendation or the motion that illumination is not proposed or permitted, if that is the direction you want to go in. But the sign it's 7.62 square feet, 4 feet 4 inches wide by 1 foot 10.5 inches tall. And it will be double-sided with a painted wood look, high-density urethane sign panel, so it'll match the same look as the sign that was proposed on 83. It'll be on a post that's less than 7 feet tall. That includes the area of the post that's above the actual sign, as you can see on the screen here. Normally, the sign does have a road setback, and that road setback is 50 feet. Except that the Plan Commission can waive the setback requirements, and obviously the sign is in the right-of-way. So with Public Works approval, the Plan Commission can grant a waiver from that setback, provided the sign won't interfere with traffic safety or be inconsistent with the objectives and purposes of the chapter. And then if it is approved, it does need to be recorded with Register of Deeds. This will replace the previous 7C sign that was located in the same location. That sign, I believe, had some external illumination that was pretty bright, so that will all go away. So my recommendation is to approve the signage in the right-of-way of Oakwood Road, including the waiver from the road setback standards, provided that the applicant, so right now in the report, you'll see that it has illumination requirements in it, but if you cross that out, you could say something like, the applicant has withdrawn his request for illumination, and any illumination would require additional approvals, or you could just say that it's prohibited. And that a waiver document shall be drafted by the city planner and recorded with the Waukesha County Register of Deeds.
Any questions for the applicant on the sign?
Amy, on the last page, that's probably somewhat representative of the height and size, right? The picture where you overlaid, the actual picture with the overlay of the sign.
Oh, that I have on the screen right there?
Yeah.
Is that representative of
Yeah,
scale?
it's as close as we can approximate.
So this sounds kind of, but is it almost like too small? Like, I mean, I feel like that's the opposite of what we should ever be saying, right?
Well,
There shouldn't be more lights and
He
strobe
lives about
lights.
100 feet from there, so he has every right to ask.
So I have a self-interest to say, don't miss that sign because you're going to turn around in my driveway.
Or something else.
Full disclosure, you're not going to turn around.
So, Dan,
Thought of you when I looked at it.
I believe the sign is limited to 8 square feet. We had the provision, the code amendment that allowed the sign on 83, but that was very specific, and I believe I'd have to go back, but it has to be on a state highway. So that would
Yeah, I'm not
apply
suggesting
to
a
the sign.
2X size, but I just was thinking, man, is it a little bit so people see it? It's just a comment, it's not an objection.
They can only go 0.4 feet bigger.
Is there an existing sign nearby? Or is
Yes,
that-
there is. Well, there's an existing structure that held the old sign, as well as electric meter from the electric company and some old fixtures.
And there's no intent to use those, or?
Not to use the existing lights, no. And that sign that was there is noticeably bigger.
Yeah, it's a lot bigger. There was actually a couple things on there, wasn't there? Besides 7C, it was just
Well, there's
7C.
2 sides, and then on the end, it said which way 83,
Yeah, and then there's the light that comes out with a metal.
on both sides.
Both sides of it, yeah.
There's no reason that to have that there for your sign, right? Correct?
We're sort of taking the position that there's a street light there, that right on that corner,
Okay.
so that we feel comfortable that that'll provide enough. We also feel pretty comfortable, given the size of the street and the speed that people are going, that you know, it's a different.
I'm not sure all the commissioners agree.
I'm sure somebody from Cedar Brook should make that assumption.
And you're not interested in illumination, then you've backed out of that?
So, so what happened is, given the size of the font, when we were talking to the signage company, they had some concerns about legibility
Okay.
and whatnot, so, we decided that it would be easier just to use the existing lights and
Okay.
car headlights.
All right. Dan, no issues at Public Works?
Addressed everything. I mean, Public Works was okay if it was illuminated, but it had to meet the city's code of the 40-foot candles at 10 inches.
10 inches,
Do I have that right?
40-foot candles, 10 inches
I've been
away.
here too long.
All right, well, I'll make a motion to approve the directional signage in the road right-of-way on Oakwood Road, including a waiver from the road setback, subject to the fact that this, there's going to be a waiver drafted by the city planner and recorded by the Waukesha County Register of Deeds. And also just to add a request that our own Public Works Department remove the existing legacy signage that's there.
And I think you need to, Amy suggested, withdraw the .1.
The point one.
The first condition, we had the illumination standards, instead saying acknowledging the applicant has withdrawn his request for illumination.
Oh, yeah, also acknowledging that the first recommendation for illumination has been withdrawn by the applicant.
I'll second.
Okay, Crystal, you want to read that back to us, just to make sure we got that right?
Okay, so it's to approve the directional signage in the road right-of-way of Oakwood Road, including a waiver from road setback, subject to a waiver document shall be drafted by the city planner and recorded with Waukesha County Register of Deeds, and a request that our Public Works Department remove the existing signage. Also acknowledging the recommendation for illumination is withdrawn by the applicant.
And the intent is not to hang you up based on when, if, how our Public Works reacts, just, we're putting them on notice, we want it
Sure.
gone. Okay.
Sounds good.
Is drafting the waiver and having you record it in the first week of April okay for your timeline?
Yes. If, our goal would be to have this sign kind of installed mid-May.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Just so I'm clear, do I need to do anything with that drafting, and, or do you send me something?
No, I think, I have to look at an old example. I think that the owners of the Commodore might have to sign it, but I will draft it, email it to you. They can sign it, and they have to bring it to City Hall, and we record it.
Perfect, sounds good.
All right, is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Yeah, well done.
Come again sometime.
Okay, we're going to move on to 10B, City of Delafield Public Road Right-of-Way of Nagawicka Avenue, applicant Rob Menema. On behalf of Delafield Heartland Water Pollution Control Commission, applicant is requesting site plan and appearance review approval for backup generator for the sanitary pump station number 5. Come on up. Help me again with your last name.
Yeah, I'll do that. So, yeah, thank you. Rob Minima, General Manager for Delafield Heartland Water Pollution Control Commission, coming before you for the Pump Station 5 generator.
All right, Amy, overview.
Okay, so Delhart's proposing to install a generator in the Nagawicka Avenue Road right-of-way. You can see the location on the screen. It is directly across from two properties, kind of share the view of the road, or of the improvements in the right-of-way. Currently, the equipment that is out there, because there already is some equipment, does provide sanitary service for pump station number 5. And the generator would specifically provide backup power during outages only, and they would only run the generator during those outages, and then also to test the generator. Apparently, they do have some, the service area does have limited elevation buffers in relation to the inlet elevation pipe to the lift station, so it is really important to have quick response times in this area. And the generator, which is 40 kilowatt, would be approximately 3 feet wide by 8 feet long and 4 feet tall. And it would be on a 4 by 9 foot pad. And that it will include a level 2 sound enclosure rated at 61 decibels. And the generator would only be used during those emergencies, and the testing would be done once a month for no more than an hour between the hours of 9 a.m. and 1 p.m. And Delhart is willing to install fencing and landscaping, but Rob did not provide a specific plan at this time. So I do say in here, approve the generator with the associated provisions as presented. And when I say that, I mean like all their testing criteria they put in their application are expected to be met, subject to visual screening of the generator to the greatest extent possible. And then I just have in here that you should determine if you want to require a specific plan be met.
Amy, this also came to Public Works
Oh.
and received unanimous recommendation.
Yes, I almost forgot. So because this one, I mean, we have not, I don't think we've had this scenario happen since I've started here, but this meeting, this application is also in the right-of-way of a road, so it had to get approval from Public Works. And the plans that are in here are scaled. SEH did go out and do a mini survey to make sure that the equipment would be within the right-of-way. So what you see on there for location is accurate.
So Rob, it sounds like you're pretty flexible on what the landscaping is. If we were to say, you know, city staff would determine what that landscaping would be and, you know, tell you X number of arborvitaes or some kind of fence or whatever, you know, being cost conscious, but trying to do a reasonable job of screening it, would you be okay with the city just giving you a plan to tell you what you should plant?
Absolutely, yeah. We kind of came into it after the fact, but Pump Station 2 had kind of a similar scenario where we approved the generator, or you approved the generator, and then we did a landscape sort of scenario where we provided a drawing based on your recommendations for fencing and landscaping and shrubs and things of that nature to kind of hide it. And we could do the same thing here. You know, I could foresee, you know, obviously this equipment's been here for a long, long time. The existing equipment hasn't been screened or fenced at all. The generator would obviously be a little more, you know, noticeable. And we could, you know, theoretically do, like I said, arborvitaes or some ornamental grass or a fence per se, but yeah, whatever you would recommend or whoever would approve that, I would be fine with that.
Thanks.
Just not arborvitae, that's just deerfoot.
Well, it's
Depends on the
staff. I
kind,
did
there's
bring
several
some
kinds.
examples.
I had to throw it
I won't
out
be
there.
picking them.
I like ornamental grass stuff. Do you know, is the person that's directly that's been looking at this in their driveway, well, it's their driveway, so they're not looking out their bedroom window at it, but are they being served by this generator?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, especially the homes right closest to this lift station are the ones that are most susceptible. And they've all been out there. I've talked to a couple of them when I've been out there, and they're very anxious to get this accomplished because there's been a recent outage just a couple weeks ago. There was an outage out there, and they were trying to get a hold of people, and you know, we got out there and the power came back in time, but they get very nervous and I would too, because they've had some instances in the past.
You don't have any backup generators at any of the other pump stations, do you?
We do at our larger ones. We have permanent backup generators, and we have portable ones as well.
Right,
But,
okay. I see the portable ones, and I've not had the issue. It just made me wonder if they're in a different circumstance.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, I was being a little coy. I know all about this because this was on our agenda last night at Delhart, but I didn't know for sure that the house immediately with the screening and that would be more subject to the noise of it was being served by it. I'd want to hear it go on, frankly. It wouldn't bother me at all.
Power goes out?
I know, it just so I've been in Delhart for, I don't know, 12 years. Someone serviced by this, or who should be serviced by this, there's more than one that have had significant incidents that are going to be avoided. And this is a proactive measure by Delhart
It's a no-brainer.
of about a 40 grand investment to take that off the table so that we're not dependent on a response time of an individual. It's the response time of a switch.
Because we know power goes out at convenient times, so.
Exactly.
So, anyway.
Then it looks like we're looking for a motion.
Okay, motion to approve the generator with the associated provisions as presented, subject to visual screening from staff to the greatest extent possible.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay, we'll move on to number 11, Comprehensive Plan Zoning and Ordinance Revision. 11A, discussion and action regarding request of the City of Delafield Planning Commission to amend the text of Chapter 52 City of Delafield zoning ordinance, specifically Section 52-197, existing nonconforming uses, Section 52-198, abolishment, Section 52-201, nonconforming characteristics of residential structures, and possible other actions related to the topic. Amy?
So I'm going to keep this brief just because I've given a summary 2 meetings in a row now. So I think I'm going to leave this to, do you have any questions related to these amendments? I did not make any substantive changes. And I do have Michael looking at the draft ordinance. So it's possible before it goes to common council that it may have some tweaks on the specific language.
But
Just
not on the intent.
Just a typo, I think,
Oh,
type thing.
no.
If you look at section 52-199 and go down to 1C2, I think the word ratio needs to come out. Shall not have a floor area ratio that exceeds 5,000 square feet. I think you're trying to say shall not have a floor area that exceeds
Oh,
5,000.
are you saying 199?
199,
So I'm gonna-
1C2.
That's existing language, and I
I
don't
realize
have
that.
it, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't have that particular section
I just thought I'd point it out.
posted for an amendment. So,
Can we,
yes.
can we make that change and act on it, though, even
I-
though it isn't?
So the notice, the public hearing was and other sections related to the topic.
There you go.
So I think you're okay there. Let me just look at, yeah, and other sections related to the topic. So yes, I think you can. We just have to tweak the ordinance. Which you can have me do for council. Remove ratio.
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, we're just removing the word ratio.
Okay, anything else? Good catch.
I try to read everything.
There was a alderman who caught it too, just, so you guys are like minds. That wasn't me.
Sometimes you can't sleep at night, you read this.
That's probably my fault because in my previous role, we used floor area ratio all the time, so I probably accidentally
Yeah,
just
the
wrote
word
it.
wasn't, yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, I'll motion to recommend common council adopt the enclosed ordinance that repeals and recreates portions of chapter 52 of the City of Delafield zoning ordinance, specifically section 52-197, existing nonconforming uses, section 52-198, abolishment, and section 52-201, nonconforming characteristics of residential structures, subject to attorney review, and also removing the word ratio under section 52-199, parentheses 1, C 2.
I'll second.
You good? All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Move on to 11B, discussion and action regarding request of the City of Delafield Lake Welfare Committee and Planning Commission to amend the text of Chapter 52 City of Delafield zoning ordinance, specifically Section 52-25 boathouses, Section 52-11 definitions of boathouses, and possible other sections related to the topic. Amy?
Okay, so same thing, we've gone through this in detail at the last meeting. The recommended amendments were recommended by Lake Welfare before we did discuss it at the February meeting. The amendments here are drafted, and again, the city attorney will be taking a look at it before it goes to council. There was, and then just keep in mind that you did have that public comment in the record if you want to discuss any of those items. Any questions?
Yeah, I just had one comment, and maybe Scott can help with this. Under subsection E, where we talk about habitation prohibited, the last sentence, electric supply is limited to 110 volt, 20 amp service. Does service imply a separate meter, or can that also say sub-panel?
It should be changed. We should change service to circuit.
Okay, then that covers
Yeah, it's a single
everything.
circuit.
Yeah, service to me implied as a separate
was one of my-
meter and, okay.
So where is that going?
So you just have to change one word.
20 amp, that,
Service should be changed to circuit.
To 20 amp circuit.
yep, okay.
That's all I had.
And I'd like to bring up one other topic. So under 5225A, I've always struggled with this. A couple lines above the red highlight, such boathouse shall be placed on a permanent foundation extending below the frost line or a concrete slab. You just described everything, and I think the intent was to have boathouses that are durable, that can stay there for decades. So I'd like to change, a very simple change, be placed on a permanent frost-free foundation. Such boathouse shall be placed on a permanent frost-free foundation and shall contain at least 200 square feet in area.
Sounds workable.
Is it frost-free or frost-proof? Is it?
Frost-free.
So, and then removing, extending below the frost line?
Yes?
And what about the concrete slab?
Nope, delete it.
And shall contain at least 200 square feet in area is in.
So there are two ways to install that foundation. Dig a trench below the lake level, pump it, place some concrete, and work your way up. Or you can actually do a shallow foundation that's insulated. And that's becoming more common because it's less invasive and easier to install. But right now, it's meaningless. It can be a foundation, it can have a foundation, or it can just be on a floating slab. You don't want a floating slab, otherwise after time, your boathouses will look 100 years old.
And the marbles are all roll one way.
Anything else?
All right, hearing no other discussion, do we have a motion?
I'm trying to edit everything we got in there. Crystal, did you get the two comments?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I wanted to make the motion because it is like welfare. Last time Dan jumped her out on me. I know I'm slow, so it's not
Gotta
his
be
fault.
fast.
So I would recommend, make a motion to recommend Common Council adopt the enclosed ordinance that repeals and recreates portions of Chapter 52 of the City of Delafield zoning ordinance, specifically Section 52-25 boathouses and Section 52-11 definition of boathouses, subject to city attorney review with the two additions we just mentioned: electric circuit instead of service, and then removal of slab. And if you've got the right verbiage, then let me know.
I'll second when ready.
When you're ready, Crystal, you want to read that back to us just to make sure, please?
So to recommend Common Council adopt the enclosed ordinance that repeals and recreates portions of Chapter 52 of the City of Delafield zoning ordinance, specifically Sections 5225 boathouses and Section 5211 definition of boathouses, subject to the city attorney review with the two additions of the circuit instead of service change and the removal of slab.
Yeah,
You probably need
need a little more help
exact
there.
Okay,
question,
here.
permanent frost-free
I can-
foundation.
Yeah, I can read the entire sentence, how I think it should be
Okay.
worded. Such boathouse shall be placed on a permanent frost-free foundation and shall contain at least 200 square feet in area to be considered a boathouse.
And the circuit?
And that's in Section 52-25A.
Correct, and as far as the electrical circuit comment,
It's an E.
got it.
5225E.
Electricity supply is limited to 110 volt. Let's make this clear. Electricity supply is limited to electricity supply is limited to a single 110 volt, 20 amp circuit.
Okay, can we just jump back
Yep.
to that part? Okay.
Yep.
So,
All the time you need. No rush.
okay, so as such, boathouses shall be placed on a permanent frost-free foundation. And what did you have on size? Sorry, I missed that part.
And shall contain at least 200 square feet in area.
To be considered a boathouse.
The size is the existing language.
Okay, so as such, boathouse shall be placed on a permanent frost-free foundation and shall contain at least 200 square feet in area to be considered a boathouse, and electricity supply to a single 110 volt, 20 amp circuit.
Correct.
Yeah, I would just,
Section E, though.
yeah.
What you just said is section E.
It's
about
part of
the
section E.
electrical.
The electrical reference is in a different section.
Okay, and
What I would do, so I would say whatever, the long part with the following changes,
Okay.
and just do 52-25 paren A, and then add, because you kind of have to say
52-25
what part,
A?
so you're, one, hold on. 1, 2, the third sentence, modify the third sentence of A to read. And then put what Scott said. Otherwise, it might be perceived that that's the only thing that should be an A.
okay.
Do I have the right sentence?
It's the third sentence of 5225A for boathouses on the permanent frost-free foundation. And then electricity and modify section E.
The last sentence of subsection E.
Okay. Do you want me to read that again?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Okay, so to modify the third sentence of 5225A, as such, boathouses shall be placed on a permanent frost-free foundation and shall contain at least 200 square feet in area and to be considered a boathouse. and modify last sentence of subsection E to read electricity supply to be a single 110 volt 20 amp circuit.
Correct.
Did you say and to be considered a boathouse or to be considered a boathouse?
To be considered a boathouse.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Second agrees?
Yes.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes. Okay, we will move on to C, 11C. Introduction of potential amendment to Chapter 52, City of Delafield zoning ordinance regarding planned unit developments. Amy?
Okay, so staff is recommending that planned unit developments be relocated to as an overlay district instead of a conditional use. So as far as the provisions go, it could be a one-for-one replacement. You're just moving it to a different section of the code, or we could do a further dive, a deeper dive, and also look at the provisions within PUDs. I think there is room for improvement, but the most important piece of this is to move it from a CU to an overlay district. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, actually several years ago when Attorney Hammes was still here, he had presented a modification. I don't know if it ever went to Plan Commission or what happened with it, but there's a statute, 62.237B, that talks about how cities can break up their community into districts, and you can say what is or isn't allowed in those districts, and that the council may, with the consent of the owners, also establish special districts such as planned development districts, and those planned development districts need to meet several standards, which your planned unit development does kind of already state the standards that are written in here. So his interpretation was that they really should just be overlay districts because that's how the statutes read in the first place. There are a lot of communities that call them out as conditional uses, and maybe that's just some of it just the way old language was written and how some people prefer to do it. But then the other, maybe even more important reason is that with Act 67, and I know we've talked about it in the past, your discretional authority has been significantly reduced for CUs. And so CUs are considered quasi-judicial in nature, and the statutes read that if they're able to provide substantial evidence that they meet the purpose and intent of your ordinances and the conditions laid out in your ordinances and the provisions of the conditions that you would place on the approval, then you have to grant that approval. Where an overlay district gives you full discretion as to whether or not you do or don't want to approve the use. And you can place, whatever conditions you want to, that are reasonable, of course, and that you can also, make sense to them. But it takes away the lack of discretion and gives you the ability to have more control.
So on that point, Amy, that seemed clear to me in the flexibility. Could you, just for context, give an example of having the additional discretion or flexibility after the change? You can make one up versus if we didn't make the change.
Yeah. So let's say, first of all, it's going to be part of a zoning district. So let's just say it's R1 residential, and I'm making this up because I don't know off the top of my head. And that requires 1 acre lots and certain open space. And they come in and they want to do a planned development to have 30,000 square foot lots and greater common open space. But it isn't designed the way that you feel is in the best interest of the city. It may be more difficult for you as a conditional use to deny that than if it's an overlay district and you really don't like it. You can just say, we're not going to consider this overlay district. You have to meet the underlying R1 district standards. So unless you change it and you meet these conditions, we're not going to move forward with this special district. Because that's really what it is. It's a special district.
All right, thank you. That helps.
And it's not always conservation subdivision minded, which you've had several of recently. It could be, PUDs are also like shops of Nagawicca. I always get my Nagawaki, Nagawicca. The Walmart Center, those are PUDs too. And that has more to do with the continuity of development between the different structures and development of the overall area. You may even want to put more control on those types of developments. Nagawicca? Chapsa?
Nagawaki.
It is
Chapsa?
I think it is Nagawaki
I think it is.
because of the park.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, just from living through this with a couple of examples where we dealt with the potential impact of that law change. Essentially, we would have to contemplate all of the different situations and scenarios where we would interpret the different criteria for approving a conditional use, like noise, light, traffic, protection of people's use and enjoyment of their property, protection of their property value. We would have to if we maintained it as a conditional use, we'd have to document all of the criteria very specifically that need to be met in order to justify denying somebody the ability to get that conditional use. If it's a matter of changing, moving it into a PUD, then it's a legislative act where we decide based on the same type of criteria in the same process, we decide that this development does meet all those criteria and we're given more liberal application of our city's comprehensive plan. Like, does it fit in? Those types of things for us to say, you know what, yeah, we're going to go through the exercise of actually passing a law to enact this, as opposed to defending our ability to justify all the rationale we built into a law, which is almost impossible. So it's a very, very pro-development movement that went on with this Act 67, which I'm not against. It just really flipped the script as far as how we're able to exercise our authority as a body. And so this is, I'm very enthused that this is going to be here because we haven't really been subjected to huge negative impacts of this, but it's a threat that I think we should get rid of.
And one factor that's commonly looked at during a conditional use is compatibility with the neighborhood is a good example. That gets pretty discretionary, and the law does state that the conditions need to be measurable, as measurable as possible. That having it as a district, if you don't think it's compatible with the neighborhood, then you can say, we're not going to accept this district, which is a lot easier than justifying it through a conditional use. Not that you can't, but it's just more challenging because it's subjective.
So we could have a blaze orange building with spires. And just, well, you don't specifically say that's not compatible.
Yep,
So we
right.
have to prove,
Right.
it makes it easier.
So what I'm looking for tonight, I'm not, you don't have to take action or give a motion, is whether or not you want staff to move forward with relocating it in the code. And then what I think we'll do is have an internal meeting to decide if we want to bring back certain provisions as well, or if that should be a follow-up project. So we'll do that internally before our next meeting.
Seems logical.
Yeah.
Be foolish not to.
Okay?
Handle that.
Not had approval. Good. That's it then.
All right. All right, we will move on to reports of city officials. 12A correspondence. I'm going to make my comments here, but this is my last planning commission meeting, and I want to thank all of you for doing the hard work of, I'll call it volunteering, because the small amount of money you each get paid for this is certainly not worth particularly what I've put most of you through for the last 6 years, which has been a lot of hard work, a lot of challenging topics. We've filled this room more than a half dozen times, and we've been successful in communicating and educating the citizens about the facts of the different developments and processes we've gone through, and with the changing of the code. And that takes a lot of work by you guys, and Laura, who's not here tonight, to work through that and find a logical result that works for a large majority of the people in the city of Delafield. And I just want to thank you for doing that. And when the next mayor comes in, I hope you stay on in your roles and continue to do the same hard work you're doing now. So I'll move on to a planner's report.
I have none.
All right, Mr. Building Inspector, you got something for me, don't you?
We're building in St. John's Estates.
Okay.
It's a big deal.
No occupancies?
Not yet.
We have a footing. We're building in Delafield.
That's a good thing. All right. 13, Planning Commission meetings and dates and deadlines. Regular meeting is April 24th, 2024. Regular meeting submittal deadline is March 27th, 2024. Seeing no further business, the meeting is now adjourned at 7:44.